JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. April 30th, 2024. We have 2 hours left until the end of the month, and then we're in sell and May go away season. Let me just get this audio off because it's beeping. That's all right. Output. Okay. All right. So really quick, just going to talk about the markets poll today on that surprising inflation number, the wage inflation. I can, what's it called? The CG. Sorry, I'm blabbing here. What is that called? It's the employment cost index. It shows how many times I've heard that because I've never I've never seen that data be really discussed much. You see wage inflation talked about the jobs report. That's always talked about every month, but interesting. So market's all the way down 504.50 is kind of my line in the sand. Came down to 504.71, starting to bounce a little bit. I guess if there's the silver lining in the thing, and I keep saying at least for the last 2 or 3 weeks, is the VIX, and the VIX has been a pretty good indicator of where the market's going to go. So if you looked at the VIX, it was only up 2, 3, 4%, and I think at its peak when it hit 1563, it was up like 6%, and the S&P was down 1%. And typically the VIX will be substantially higher, especially where it's come from over the last couple of weeks. So I think that's a little silver lining. We'll see what happens after the close with Amazon. And then the Fed tomorrow is today's little poll more in anticipation of the Fed being more hawkish. I think if Powell spins hawkish, it probably pressures more markets more. Hopefully he's able, again, I use the phrase to walk the tightrope between appeasing folks who don't want to cut rates and be too accommodative, and also kind of make sure people don't think that they're not going to have control over inflation. Because was only a year ago where they said, "Oh, inflation's transitory," and we saw what happened with that. So that's the markets. We'll see if 504.50 held. That's a great sign. The 50-day names above the 50-day moving average is now at 43%. It was almost at 50. Well, it was at 50 this morning. Hopefully that reverses course. All right, so some of the names, I took profits in some names this morning. Well, 2 names. So first was CAVA Group, and I guess it was profiled on IBD, Investor Business Daily. Also, there was like a little Yahoo clip that Kravitz shared for us. But it's one of those names. The multiples are insane, right? It trades at similar revenue multiples than CMG. It's just growing top line a heck of a lot faster. But pretty much anyway you spin the numbers, it's not like you look at a name and it was at $70. You say, wow, this is going to go to 140 in a couple weeks. But it seems it got some momentum. People looking at the CMG run, and it's split now, and that's in the headlines. So then you look at a name like CAVA and you say, wow, this is company still in its early stages, early innings of its story. Is it gonna take off like Chipotle Mexican Grill? I don't know if that was some of it, but when I wrote on the watch list and I talked this morning on the rant, I was gonna lock my calls in because the premiums weren't moving fast enough for me. And I figured if there was any kind of pull, the premiums are gonna evaporate and I'm gonna be back in a losing position. So of course, what happens at the open? It just gaps and runs, and it pretty much nonstop. I was able to lock some in for 100%. I was going to hold the rest just in case it continued to go, and then once it's failed to really start to break out, I locked the rest out for a double as well. So 100%, I'll take that. I mean, maybe it goes to $80 in the next week or two. I don't know, but the premiums came out right away once it sold off from 74.58. It's down here at 71.85, so pretty much $3 off the highs. Another name I'll revisit at some point, keep on the watch list, but happy with that one. Happy to get the exit and move on from there. Also, the funny thing is, if you look at FinTwit, nobody was really talking about CAVA. And of course, when it starts moving, then everybody's talking about CAVA. Oh, yeah, we called this last week. We called this yesterday. Look at this huge 15% move in the last 3 days. I don't see anybody chattering about it till it started to move. So typically, yeah, that's not the telltale signal to hit the exit. Sometimes it could mean this is it. All right, so that's one. VKTX, take a look at it today. I can go on rants. At some point, maybe I'll just do a quick video with slides so people can see the VKTX data, the dosage, what the possibility for the oral drug looks like in comparative to NVO and LLY. But just pretty fun, pretty comical. Again, VKTX is further out there that's going to take some time for them to get to mark. But even you just take a look at LLY's earnings this morning, just monstrous. And the market, it's not like the market's going to disappear. It keeps growing. They keep adding new areas that the GLP-1 drugs can solve. So it was just most recently it was sleep apnea. Then, but before that, it was approved for cardiovascular. Of course, it started with diabetes. So all these afflictions, it's just going to keep going down the line. There's just going to be more and more and more. I keep saying at some point it's going to be addiction. So you see it up here at 78 and change. Finally, that 78 spot's a key resistance. If it breaks through that, I think I would love to see 80 before the end of today, if not tomorrow. The thing with VKTX, who knows where it heads, if there's any negative news or whatever. So I just, when I see the calls up over 100%, I lock some in just to cover costs. I said this a couple days ago. I was surprised after earnings that the premiums had held up, because sometimes you get a premium crush, but premiums held up strong and they keep creeping higher, which I don't know if it's all the option action that's causing the implied volatility increase. I don't know, but I took advantage of that. And I had the 100 strikes for June. I'll probably look for some further out of the money, substantially less expensive calls, just for some FOMO on a possible move up without a takeout, the Nash news, and a possible takeout. Because I think if there is a buyout, I think it's going to be 100%. So, or $150. It's only an $8 billion market cap right now, or nearly 9 billion. What's another 9 billion, especially some of these big biotech names? And I don't think any of these big biotech companies that don't have their hands in the GLP-1 space, anyone's going to argue with them if they bought VKTX for 100% here. So that's VKTX. So I'm not losing my confidence or conviction in VKTX. It just sometimes just makes sense to take some profits, and I'll use some of that to get some further out of money strikes, probably larger quantity. So that's that. Which brings us to the pot names: Cannabis, ACB, CGC, Tilray, MSOS, which is the ETF, got halted as reports came out that the DEA is moving to reclassify marijuana. So I think it was a class 3 or something. I forget exactly what it was, but it was classed the same as heroin, which is just mind-boggling. But uh, you got two sides. In my opinion, was the first was you knew that this was coming, right? So I think some of the move up, especially the last couple months, was in anticipation of this move. So that's great. So I'm kind of shocked things are up this much, but then maybe it means more than I thought. So I'm not I don't claim to be an expert in cannabis. I just nibble and dabble. Um, and I just saw opportunities in these names. It's a long time coming. If you've been following some of these names for years and years, I loved Tilray back, I guess in the fall. Was it the fall? I forget when I got the Tilray calls after acquisition. Um, I like them, and you start doing more research. They're building out scale. It's like a ticking time bomb that these companies have already built out the scale. It's just a matter of getting the approval. And we saw that in Germany recently, and now you see it in the U.S. And if it's going to be a snowball effect. So take a look. I added IIPR calls as it was starting to run, just because IIPR is kind of like an under the radar name that people don't realize can take advantage of the space. So once those floodgates once the snowball starts going and the floodgates open, IIPR is going to be to the point where they're not going to know what to do with themselves. They're going to have so much business. So not only that, you have the specter or the possibility of some kind of bank reform for cannabis, because right now, if you're a company and you're looking to raise capital to build a store or whatever, you can't do it if you're cannabis because it's illegal. It's not, banks don't approve that stuff, right? Similar, I used this a couple of weeks ago or last week. It's same with gaming. Banks, credit cards used to never do anything with the gaming sector. I mean, unless you were in Las Vegas or Atlantic City or some of these places, because it was illegal and you weren't allowed, you just couldn't do it, couldn't do the online stuff. So now, of course, it's more prevalent, and a lot of the states have already legalized a lot of stuff. So it's a little different story. I think the same has happened with cannabis, and once that happens, just another gust of wind in the back of the sails, and will create more tailwind for some of these names. So you look at CGC, still have some of the May strikes, which are back to life. Finally, I had locked some of those in. ACBs, let me look what those are now. Those are coming back to life. Of course, in hindsight, it's easy. I could have said, I should have added more ACBs. I'm just going to need a little more upside here, and those will come back to life. But I think, and I think I've said it 30 or 40 times, I think CGC 17, 18 in the coming weeks, ACB 11, 12, somewhere in there, maybe even higher. And I think some of the reason why you see Tilray going really nice today, CGC is 33%, Tilray's up 28%, because of their exposure to the US. I think they have better exposure in some areas. Or maybe it's just because it didn't rally as much with the other names when it started to rally. So great to see these names go. Hopefully there's continuation, and yeah, rock and roll. So that's CGC, IIPR, um, and IIPR was looking to get the 110s. I put in order to didn't get filled, so I go out to do the 115s, and I think I was trying to get them at 40 cents. I don't even know what the 115s are right now. And then I hear the ding ding, and I knew I got filled on the 110s. So are the one, let's see here. Yeah, so they're not even up that much. But I was trying to get the 115s at 45. So yeah, so CGC wasn't allowed to do some things in the US. I'd had to spin off. Some of the reason that was that news was with Constellation Brands. They had to create a new share class or something like that, a new business division. Just all the hoops you have to jump through because of cannabis being the scheduled, what do you say, class one. I keep saying rescheduled class. Yeah. Okay. All right, so that's CGC, IIPR. I think IIPR gets over 110 in the next week, probably even sooner than that, especially people start reading the press. It'll be all over the news today. Your afternoon, evening news, people are going to be turning on the TV and then they'll say, oh, cannabis, it's going to be everywhere. And then once that happens, people start asking their friends, how can I make money on this? How can I? And that's what happened a couple of years ago when the legalization theme started to pick up pace and you saw some of these names going nuts and they were substantially higher than where they are now. So this is like this has been coming for so long. All right, so those are marijuana names, the cannabis names, excuse me. ROKU, not much to say about here. ROKU, I haven't traded in. I got to look to see the last time I got calls. I was talking about it before earnings. It seemed like Spotify and Netflix were kind of paving the way for the streaming side and the content providers. I'm like, is this the end of that cycle? And then you saw Roku, great earnings. I guess people still a little concerned. I don't know, but it reversed. It was in the 70s overnight. Then it reversed. It was red, sold off into the 50s, and then yesterday solid green. And then today you have news that it's partnering with the trade desk TTD to help with the advertising, monetizing of the platform. They're going to share, I guess, uh, user user data and help tailor ads to folks. I don't know exactly what the news is or the details of the news, but I just construe that as net bullish considering where Roku is. That's what their business is now. Their monetization of their platform business. So I was hoping it was going to break once it started getting into the 60s. It was holding there, broke up to 61, sold off. I used that as an opportunity to get some calls. Plenty of time on the strikes. It's sitting here in the 58s again. I mean, at some point you have to think there's going to be buyout rumors. Anyway, so rants for other days. So edited the Roku's probably. Maybe I could have waited, maybe later strikes, but I'm content with what I have for now. Decent risk reward setup there. Trupanion down nearly 6% today. No news, just a slow melt, methodical. I was hoping for the flip side to be able to lock some of my calls in to cover costs, or at least maybe even sell them all and then get some higher later dated strikes or inexpensive strikes. Not going to get that chance pending any crazy move into the close today or tomorrow. They report earnings Thursday after before the open. The only other glimmer of hope is Lemonade reports earnings tomorrow morning. So if there's some kind of update on their pet insurance business that maybe it bodes well for Trupanion, maybe we'll get some kind of sympathy move. That's Trupanion. Biogen was sitting at 217.50 and was pretty much holding up with the market sell off, and just in the last 40 minutes has dropped from 217.50. It's trading here 214.83. It's barely even down. It's down 0.2%. So it's not down too much. Won't take much either for the calls to come back to life, but it's got to start moving here. Still like the Biogen setup. It's pinching. Great story. That's that. Yeah, so if the SPY broke 504.50, I was possibly going to look for some hedges. A couple weeks, 2 weeks ago, around this time, got those Vago puts and they wound up paying off. Had MDB puts, and CrowdStrike. But the premiums are freaking nuts. Sorry, pardon my French. And I was looking at LRCX, and the premiums are nuts on those as well. So I don't know if some of it's because AMD reports after the close or super micro. Is that going to have a big move? Is that going to cause some kind of sympathy move in some of the names? Is that why the premium's so hefty? I don't know, but I'll pass for now. I'll have to find some other kind of hedge. Maybe I'll just do an index put QQQs or TZAs or things like that. Oh, Trupanion just hit lows again. Um, I think that's about it. I'm trying to think of what else. PayPal. I was eyeing PayPal. Great report. Then the stock reversed the morning gap. traded into the red, was down like 2%, or maybe it was flat. Started to bounce almost near 70. I almost ran and got some weekly strikes, but I just kind of sat on my hands. So I'll probably look to trade Square. I'm not going to do it today. I'll probably wait till post Fed meeting tomorrow. If well, during maybe 2:30, 3 o'clock hour, give me a day to hopefully ride some premium on Square and have an opportunity to lock some in or ride for earnings. I think that's it, folks. Got about 45 minutes to the close. Hopefully, we can get a little bounce here on the S&P. And let's have a great day. Rock and roll.